Dear friends, welcome to Time with Thebsian. And this Friday we are going to discuss testing of biomedical devices for biocompatibility. Whatever biomedical devices we use, it should be acceptable to the body. There are a battery of tests to ascertain whether the biomedical device is biocompatible and can be used safely in a living being. Biocompatibility tests becomes handy for the classification of biomedical devices. Class 1 need not get tested for biocompatibility. They are medical devices that are very commonly used like toothbrush. In case of class 2 devices, needs a kind of certification if there are claims. So take wheelchairs come under class 2. It need not undergo biocompatibility tests, but if it is an electric wheelchair or a wheelchair that is automatic in function naturally, you need biocompatibility testing at least for certain parts. Class 3 needs testing for biocompatibility and certification before going into the market. Class 4 needs testing, especially some long-term tests for biocompatibility is a must for class 4 devices. Today we will see what are the different types of tests that are used to test a medical device or the biomaterial that are going into the fabrication of a medical device. And I have told you earlier, all these safety of medical devices and biocompatibility of medical devices is very much concern of the manufacturer and seller, because they are going to sell these to customers and there are customers' rights and laws to protect them. So they don't want to get prosecuted in a court of law. So they themselves see that their products are biocompatible, because then only they can compete with other companies which make or produce similar kind of devices. The biomaterials or the end product biomedical devices are tested for their physicochemical properties first, because the results of the physicochemical properties will indicate whether these materials contain any hazardous material, because the chemistry of the material is available and the toxicity of each chemical is available. So naturally, whenever the physicochemical properties are analyzed and the results is obtained, the engineer can very well ascertain that his product, his biomaterial or his end product may create problems, and these samples need not be tested for biocompatibility using in vitro and in vivo tests. So positively, all the manufacturers test their biomaterials and end products for physicochemical analysis. So there are two different types of testing in biocompatibility. One is the primary testing of these samples using cell culture methods or in vitro methods. In vitro means they are tested in glass bottles or glass vessels. So they are tested in the lab. The other testing is the in-vivo testing, that is the using live laboratory animals, they are tested for biocompatibility. So let us see what are the in vitro tests: cytotoxicity, hemolysis, complement activation test, AMES mutagenicity test, and then carcinogenicity test using cultured cells. Let us see what are the in vivo tests that are used for testing biocompatibility. That's one is the rabbit pyrogen testing, and if the manufacturer is interested, he can subject his samples for USP class 6 testing, then systemic toxicity tests, intracutaneous irritation test, sensitization test, implantation test, and subchronic or chronic carcinogenicity testing. So we observed that there are a battery of in vitro tests and also a battery of in vivo tests. So cytotoxicity test is using cell culture to test the toxicity or biocompatibility of test samples. So as I mentioned earlier, we use the physicochemical test to wean out the samples. In vitro tests also can wean out. If some samples are proving that they are cytotoxic in the test, then usually they are not subjected to further biocompatibility testing using in vivo methods. And the interesting fact here you have to understand is this cytotoxicity tests are carried out in cultured cells, and this test is being upgraded maybe every year in different labs all over the world. Some labs use computer analysis for estimating the cell death, or some labs use estimating cell lysis using enzyme techniques. So we can say that this technique is being evaluated and studied, causing different results, different types of results for estimating the toxicity. So it goes without saying that here the toxicologist decides what type of cell he will use and what type of estimation techniques he will use to analysis cause of death or cause of growth of the cell culture in using cell culture technique for testing biocompatibility of test materials in vitro. Genotoxicity tests, the test samples are extracted in polar and non-polar samples and used for genotoxicity testing. Here, the extracts are carried out as per ISO standards. One more in vitro test is hemolysis. Simply, hemolysis is the destruction of blood cells. So a blood sample is collected and it is diluted with saline for injection. Then test samples are exposed to this blood in saline, and it can be incubated at 35 degrees centigrade or kept in normal room temperature, and then later on analyze for hemolysis, that is by calculating the percentage of cell lysis in that particular solution. So there is a battery of 3 or 4 tests under the hemocompatibility test, and the major one is the complement activation test, chronic testing for carcinogenicity. These are long-term implants in laboratory animals tested for chronic period, that is extending up to 2 years. And these samples will be sent for histopathological study, from where the toxicologist will get an assessment of the tissue around the sample and a report on whether this is safe or the material is a potential carcinogen. Biocompatibility testing of long-term implants and biocompatibility testing of USB samples for USB class 6 tests were a little bit mixed up. But this video clearly describes or explains how different tests are carried out for testing biocompatibility of medical devices that are going to be in human beings chronically or in long term. If you have got further doubts, kindly call me and let me know what your doubts are. Hope you are getting some information through these videos. Kindly wait for the next Friday to see the video and to be listening to me. And let your friends know about the biocompatibility of biomedical devices and different topics on biomedical devices coming through Time with Thebsian on biomedical devices. So kindly like my videos and subscribe and share with your friends. Hope to meet you next Friday. Bye.